Hello, hi Maciej. All good?
Hey man, very good, very good. Yourself?
Yes, I'm fine. So thank you for joining our podcast, and I'll be really glad to talk about a very interesting topic that is SAP recruitment. And before we start, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself, and as I usually ask, and how you got into the SAP recruitment world. That would be an interesting story for sure.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and I would like to welcome all the listeners or viewers of it. Well, how I get into the SAP world and why SAP world, I would say, is 14 years now for me in the SAP ecosystem. It's basically started with my first proper job after the university. I finished university in Scotland, and I said, okay, what I should do, etc. So I started looking for jobs. And funny enough, the SAP and the recruitment world kind of found me because they were needing someone who will be speaking Polish to cover the Polish accounts, Polish clients, and then develop the Central and Eastern Europe as a market. That was in my previous company. And that's it kind of started without me kind of looking something within the even recruitment to start with. But given the years I'm in the business, is naturally I understand that is something I really love and I'm passionate about. Is something that I drive to help people around to find their next dream job. Obviously it's not always like that because it's hard to find the dream jobs, but I'm trying to do my best, just to match the right companies with the right talent, and then meet the best friends along the way, because just I think it was five SAP consultants were on my wedding who used to work for me. So so along the way you really find the best friends, the good contacts, good people, and then you create the community yourself. So this is how it started for me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, having them in the wedding is a good sign that they still like you after you place them in the
I hope
company.
so, yeah.
So it's always good. And yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the networking thing and having this network of consultants, because that's also more or less how we met in the SAP Insight Track Warsaw. It was a very nice event, and I got to hear your presentation about the market, and also some hints for job seekers and consultants that are looking for new roles. I think it was a very interesting really presentation, and you shared some good tips for people that are looking for new jobs. And
Yeah.
I would like to hear a bit more about your experience in the area, and if you could just recap some of the things you mentioned there, because I think they are worth hearing, and some people don't consider them always when looking for a job or when receiving a proposal from a recruiter.
Yeah, so about the SAP Insight Track, I get a special polo today. SAP Insight Track represent. No, the event was amazing. It was. I was one of the quite few prelegents on there, the speakers, and it was covering various topics from very technical, from the kind of organization to etc. So my topic was slightly around all of it, right? Like my job is. So I'm kind of in the middle of the action. My job is to be in the between consultants and clients, and then understand both sides and trying to make a difference and added value. So my presentation was about kind of giving the kind of hints and tips from the both perspective, from the things that I have noticed, and then kind of maybe advices how we can prepare ourselves. So I split it into one side of the presentation was about the candidate kind of approach. So I mentioned about the need of the consistent training, development, and then education, because I'm big supporter of SAP Learning Hub, even though it's not the cheapest tool out there, but I believe the education is a path to follow, and I'm considering SAP consultant many times like a doctors. You need to always educate yourself, right? Just to stay with the current changes, because if you miss this train, you miss the S4. If you miss the S4, etc., you may stay on the station and waiting on the last train, and you find it very difficult to find something else later on. So that was one of the stuff. The second one is about the need of education, not only on the technical side, but on the soft side, preparing for the interviews, preparing for the market, investing in yourself and your skills, communication, languages. I always like to bring the example of German speakers, because it's plus 100 euros per day for this skill only. It doesn't matter what you do within the IT, and that's why I urge the especially in the junior consultants, but not only, but when you have a German speaker, for example, in your junior, you're already so much easier to be employed when you're only speaking English, right? Just to start with. Another part is about looking on and I think you mentioned that on your post, right? About the legislation changes, right? That you need to be careful about how is going on and how that can affect your business, right? Because, for example, in UK, there's IR35 legislation, which really impacted the local market. So basically, this legislation is about determination if you should working as a freelancer or you are kind of hiding the employment within the organization, and you tend to be inside or outside. When you're outside, you can work as a freelancer. When you're inside, you're basically charged as an employee, right? And suddenly, it doesn't matter if you have your own limited company or your sole trade, because you're paying the normal taxes, and it's not added value for you for the money sometimes, because I always claim the freelancers are taking risk. Freelancers are here to deliver the stuff that is no point to hire, let's say, permanent employees, because sometimes after the project you don't need to have the certain skills, and they are here to help, right, for time period. And again, that's why they should earn more. And with that kind of legislation, it's becoming difficult, right? And that's why I advise kind of prepare for the worst and then hoping for the best kind of approach, because there is a way of tackling this situation, create a micro consultancy team up, which again brought to another point, which is about the network, about building your personal kind of community where you can share the knowledge. Because again, as I'm really happy to push people into the education path, I'm as well pushing the people just to share the knowledge, right? Because it's always helping to people who are coming into the market, educate themselves when there is an expert like yourself or anyone else within SME, helping the people around them to grow, right? Because right now the situation is happening that the talent is growing much quicker than in the past, because there is a more tension between the companies, etc. So people can grow very quickly now. So within 3-4 years, you're suddenly senior manager with the organizations. When back in the days, it take 10-15 years, right? So if you help someone along the way, it might happen that sooner or later this person could be your client. But if you help this person to grow, they will remember you, right? And then, or they will be potentially hiring you soon, or they'll point you in the right direction again, So it's always both sides. And then, I mentioned as well that the people who are doing whatever they do, they need to feel about their personal brand as well. So, creating LinkedIn professional, LinkedIn kind of presence, right? Because in the end, is where you're getting the most of the jobs now, right? LinkedIn is becoming like a business card of each one of us, right? And then just giving their knowledge there, make it professional, connecting with the people, going to the presentations or conferences, meet up with the people there, connect there, suddenly create really a great opportunity to grow, right? As well. So that was another kind of advice. From the client perspective, which was the second part, I kind of, mentioned similar things, but obviously from their approach about education, and mentioned about, the risk of losing the senior guys if you are stuck in one system, if you are not growing your IT landscape in the pace of your competition, right? Because people like to grow. And if they don't grow within your organization, you may lose them sooner or later. So, for example, if
they are going to grow somewhere else. Yeah.
Exactly. If you stick on the 4.6 ECC when everyone around you is on the S4, sooner or later you lose those people, because if they'll stay too long within your organization, they'll lose the skill. If they lose the skill right now, there'll be really heavy problems later on in the future. So that's one of the things. Obviously, it's not that easy. Oh, let's move and then grow, but is something that you need to look at. And if you cannot provide a quick solution, meaning, okay, we do that digital transformation of our systems, just at least make sure that the talents will be growing within the kind of limited situation like this. And that's why SAP Learning Hub is coming into the game, or even just paying to the consultant for their certification paths or anything like that, because it's easier to invest in the people rather than hiring again and again and again the people who are keep losing, right? And another thing is about investing the knowledge of those higher associates to train the juniors, because the same thing, juniors will have even less patience to stay in the certain organizations if they can see there are nothing that can learn extra there, right? Because they know that in the end, at this moment, where they are, the most important thing is to educate themselves, right? To do grow. The first 3 years, I would say, is crucial for every IT consultant out there, and it's kind of shaping your future, right? Because you're choosing the favorite module that you are feeling the best about, like an SAP, if you go SD or MM, it doesn't matter, right? But you kind of paving your path. And then if the client will not see it as a critical to develop those, again, they will lose those people as well. And that's why I said, okay, use those seniors to train the juniors to not lose both of them as well, and then creating the teams who are managing that. Another thing which I mentioned is obviously to not make a costly decisions, about not choosing subject matter expert to help you when you are choosing the new IT systems, right? Because it's like one of the example I gave was one of my customers who was choosing between SAP and the Microsoft solution. They didn't have a knowledge whatsoever on SAP, but they were making decision on SAP, right? But then internal kind of perception of SAP was, it's not good for retail, because they didn't know the SAP as a tool from the inside, because they were using prominently the Microsoft. And suddenly you're really cutting yourself with the options here. And then I assist them with the bringing, person who have knowledge on the both systems, on SAP and then Microsoft, and he gave them a massive override, about what is good in one side, what is good in the other side, what is minus on one side, what is the minus on the other side. And in this way, the client could choose the right options, right? But again, that was about the conversation, because they were almost saying no straight away without even really properly investigating. And in the end, they choose SAP, which I'm glad, even though I have nothing against Microsoft, right? But is that kind of investment? I would say, I think that cost them 20,000 euros to make this kind of exercise. But when you're investing 2.5 million, because that was the starting budget, that's nothing, right? That's nothing, but that can result in the either success or failure, right? Because then if you're investing in such a big money in the system where are not fit straight away in your purpose, or there is something else for the same price, you're losing already competitive edge. So that was one advice. Another one is about choosing to kind of engage the change managers earlier in the process into your projects, right? Because what we are seeing, a lot of projects is all about, project manager, developer, functional guy, job done, but then a lot of problems on the projects is starting when there is not enough time or time allocated to do a change management, just to make sure the users understand that, IT change is good for them. It's not engage them. It's not make it harder life. It's completely opposite, right? And I find it really surprising that majority of our requests, when there's a change manager request, is when the project is already kind of getting on the red or amber, right? Not on the green, never on the green, right? Never on the green. And that's one of the things that, I found it interesting, that, when situation is getting tricky, then we are looking for a solution where we should look up front for stuff, because then a lot of problems can be avoided, or even managed in the right way. Because, as you know probably better than me, if you manage the customer about some certain changes, you will not have such a big delays, right? Because some of the user or business process owners, they will say, I want to do the same thing like I used to do, right? And that's it. But sometimes you need to understand that, going even from the on-prem to the S4, you need to sacrifice some of the stuff how you used to do, right? Just in order to improve the process, in order to use kind of, I always say that as clear vanilla system as possible, because yes, it's harder maybe to change it in the very beginning, but later on it will be only benefit, right? A benefit of upgrading much easier when the system is as clean as possible. B, you're saving on the time, right? Because if you make sure your process are really according to the best practices, it is already best practice, right? Again, obviously, it's a case by case, it's a case, but it's some of the things I definitely kind of noticed. What else?
I'd like to ask you one thing, because you mentioned lots of different topics, interesting ones. But for example, you mentioned about LinkedIn, like it's our business card nowadays. It's for example, in my business, I think like 60% of my requests come from LinkedIn or something like that. And what you see nowadays when you check a profile on LinkedIn, what is a nice characteristic that you see that, okay, this is interesting, let's talk to this guy? Or how normally you find people in LinkedIn? Do you have like a special recruiter tools to do a search, and then you find some, and then you check one by one? So how normally does that work for you?
Well, that's the thing, is depend why I'm using LinkedIn, right? What for? Because, for example, if I'm looking for a certain person, then I'm doing the certain person skill set search, right? If I'm doing the business development, it's different as well. But what I'm looking on the LinkedIn is the information, obviously, plain and easy, but information which is related to my client, right? So you always start with the most detailed search you can get, right? So if the client needs SAP SD German with, I don't know, OTC within the pharma, with German kind of localization experience, rollouts, etc., I'll try to put all of it in, right? Because that's what the client wants, right? And then if someone will pop in, that will be the first person I'll reach out. But in order to pop in, they need to have it on their profiles, either as a titles or language skill set on the bottom, or in the text what they have done, right? So I always say that you should kind of develop your LinkedIn as a mini CV, right? Because then more kind of keywords you have in your LinkedIn, the easier on the search algorithm you'll pop in. Your profile will pop in, and then from the other side, if you're actively looking for a job, don't be worried about putting open to opportunity or just market. There is a kind of toolbar on the LinkedIn where you just say I'm open for a work, right? Just do it as well, because some people say, oh, it's desperate. It's not desperate. It's just helping you find a job, and then again, some of the clients like to do the search themselves, so it's easier if your profile is perfect, right? So that kind of thing. You need to just make sure your profile is clean. I'll use as well professional picture than there, because it's not about saying who you are or something like that. It's a lot of people are kind of visual people, and then they might even remember you because your picture, right? And then they'll come back to you because of that. So you always try to help yourself in the best way, right? And then it's worth it to mention about you section, just how many years experience you have, what kind of projects you have done, if you have a S4 experience, that kind of, like an executive summary about your profile, because that really helps, because it will help you to find a better job, and it will help you potentially to save yourself from potentially spamming, right? Because we need to remember some of the clients or some of the people, they are not expert, for example, in SAP searches. They generalistic recruiters or managers who they need something, but then they don't know exactly what they need, and they will contact everyone who have SAP, not FI, but SAP, and suddenly you'll get a miscommunication with there.
Yeah, I know. I think this is interesting because at least every SAP consultant I know was already invited to an interview with something else completely different from their area of expertise just because of the word SAP. That happens. That happens sometimes, and sometimes the requirements from the customers, they aren't very clear. Especially when we are talking like about new solutions for SAP. Yeah, I have seen like a customer asked for a profile with 5 years of experience in something that was released 2 years ago. And then I even tell the recruiter, okay, this technology didn't exist like 5 years ago. That you are looking for somebody that doesn't exist right now yet.
No, exactly.
That happens, right?
And that's the part of my job, just to avoid that kind of situation, because in the end, again, I'm not a SAP consultant myself, but after 14 years being on the interviews, right? Because that's what I do. I'm present on the interview just to make sure that we are going according to the plan, everything is fine, and etc. Because I found it valuable for giving the really good constructive feedback after the interviews, and at the same time that helped me to learn about SAP, about the models, about difference between SDMM or anything else around it. Obviously, I don't know the transactions code in everything. I don't know the topics, etc. But I know enough in order to define what clients want, right? And knows exactly. I know exactly what we are looking for. When, as you say, client knows himself. But if he doesn't know, I'm challenging that, right? I'm trying to find out about the project. I'm trying to even ask for a referral to their more technical people, right? Because sometimes it's going from the project manager who is not necessary from the world, right, of SAP. And then I'm trying, okay, so introduce me to your team members who will be doing the project, and I'll speak with them, right? And then I'll requalify, and then I will check. Or I'll just say, listen, if that's the case, we really don't know what we need. Let's organize the call between me, you, and my friend who is a SAP consultant. And then usually I'm using my network, right, for that, just to qualify what the requirement is, and a kind of by definition going who do we need, right? And then kind of making the business scoping on the call rather than anything. But again, that's because I'm doing that for past 14 years. But my recommendation is always to make sure we understand what we're looking for and what client is really need, because the JDs of 40 requirements is not really a JD, right? Is we need 2-3 things out of it, and then the rest is nice to have or wish list. And sometimes you don't need everything, right? You don't need integration with every single model out there when there is a project of FICO. You just don't need. But again, it's just about speaking, qualifying, pre-qualifying, and reaching to the right people who help you be successful.
Yeah, I think you mentioned also something else that I like, because in the past I have already worked with very good recruiters, and they help like the candidate to prepare for the interview. So they bring information that you cannot find online. So how is the interview, the hiring manager, how normally they see things, what kind of projects the company is, and what kind of things they are interested. Because when you click and apply for a job, you don't have these details. You cannot find it online. So these kind of things, I think, they're very useful.
Yeah, and what I do, I'm helping every single consultant who is going in the interview with me, but I'm not giving the questions, right? That's the thing. I'm just saying, hey, listen, prepare on this and that, but I'm not just giving, he will ask you about this particular case, right? Because it's about helping, but not pushing, right? Because in the end, it will backfire. Because if again, I'm not a technical person, so I cannot judge myself if this person is good enough to be on this project. Client need to decide, our technical person from the client. But if I'll give too much, he will just Google it, even if he never done it or something like that, go to SAP Learning Hub, and then you might pass the interview, but later on is a problem, right? Because in the end, I always see the freelancers as experts, and they need to be, right? That's why client is hiring them, and you need to be careful about it. But what I do is exactly, I would say about the style of the interview, if it's more technical or is easy, I'll just say, okay, listen, this person is very straight to the point, so make sure your questions are straight to the point. Don't circle around, don't make a story of your life over the interview, because this is not the type of interview this person like. So that kind of advices, just to make sure that is the most efficient way for both sides, right? Is a from one side, clients know this, the second person will be within the certain frame of the interview. B, the consultant will have a best chance to present in the right way, because no one's like when you say, okay, no, let's move on to the next question, because no one likes when you're being stopped like that. But something is happening if you don't go according to the frame of the interview,
Yeah, I know. And I find it very interesting. I see a lot. In the past, I used to see it more like people asking, what are SAP FICO interview questions and things like that. And I always thought, okay, if a company is doing a technical interview based on things that I can Google in 3 seconds, they don't need to hire a person. They can Google it in 3 seconds and answer. So this part, as also I do some recruitment. Normally, I don't ask hard technical questions because they more or less don't make sense. Yeah. We need to understand how the person thinks, what is his experience, what he did. But these hard questions, normally, I even told once a guy that was interviewing me, I don't know this answer, but I can Google it and we find it in 5 seconds. I think that's not a very important topic.
No, exactly. And it's what you just said is so important, right? For example, I really don't like textbook interviews, right? It's like I like to call them in the meaning of the interview that you need to, on top of your head, name the third from the bottom transaction code on the FICO, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And it doesn't make sense, right? Because if you open the cockpit of the SAP, you will see it there, right? It's like memorizing the phone book, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's better to check if this person know how to get there, how to create all of it, how to configure all of it, because that's the real knowledge, right? But again, it's rare, but it's happening. I'm just always trying to help the client as well, just to make the most of the interviews. But again, it's just I'm trying to help, right? It's in the end, sometimes clients, they have their own style, which I need to respect. But in the same time, I will let no consultant that listen, it can happen, that kind of question. So be ready, or don't be surprised.
Yeah, and I have seen it more in the past, but I still see it sometimes. And well, you mentioned about the S4HANA. That's like the biggest topic we have right now. We have two biggest topics in SAP world. It's S4HANA and BTP. Everybody's talking about that. And I would like to know your opinion about how the market is, what companies are looking, what areas are really difficult right now to find people.
Yeah. So the market.
In your opinion, always.
Yeah. So the market is particular right now. I think it's the market which is kind of I don't know. It will be cool to hear the opinion of the people under this podcast or on the comments on the LinkedIn. But from my perspective, is that the market is right now still on the kind of waiting approach. And I don't know kind of why, because in theory, a lot of budgets were approved in December, right? So usually the middle of Feb was very, very busy, right? Right now is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. And considering, the ECC support will finish soon, right? Considering some of the older version of this S4 support will finish soon. And suddenly in next 3 years, we'll get all of those S4. I find it difficult for companies to make those projects, right? Because there will be limited talent in some point. So I think we are just in the waiting when it will be big boom, right? But when it will be big boom, every time the quality suffers, right? Because you are doing either on the rush or with the limited workforce, right? So it's always the case, or even the higher cost, right? Because if you need to, in some point, fight for a talent, then the cost is coming into the game, right? What I noticed as well, a lot of basis guys are looking for a job, right? When before basis were spot on, so I hope that the part of the basis didn't finish, but yeah, this is what I noticed. The ABAP guys are stable, integration is stable. The functional guys, again, depend model by model, right? The APO, well, is dying, right? Unfortunately, in case of the demands. The PP, SDs, they are kind of stables. There's increase on EWM, that's for sure. That's noticeable, right? I can see. And then, as always, FI with the localization, FI with that's always demand, but obviously critical for many rollouts. Well, the interesting fact, the success factors HR models, they are a bit quiet now. as well. So that's kind of interesting because before they were really noisy. Obviously, the HR model as it is not existing almost, right? Because SuccessFactor, but SuccessFactors have a big competition with the Workday and other solutions. So maybe that's why it's a bit more stable there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting market. I would say sooner than later it will be start moving. Some of the companies are already doing their S4s. They are starting on the S4 journeys, but a lot of them are still doing the kind of business talks about it, right? So they are in the very early stages. And then we need to remember, that the S4 kind of mayhem will start when 100, 200, 300 big companies start doing the projects, because when those clients will get all the talents from the big consultancy, there will be a big vacuum for everyone else, so I think we are on the edge. But again, from my own perspective, I still find the market kind of stable waiting mode, right? And I hope it will really turn very quickly. But it will be like a domino effect, I think, it will be like a domino effect from my perspective. We just needed not that much to change the tide. And then hopefully you will get a really nice projects out there. And then interesting projects, because listen, the AI is in the increase. The all CRMs like Salesforce, Microsoft, they are, doing really great things as well. And it's all integrations, or like a other solution like a O9 on the supply chain is becoming more popular. So again, it's depends what you do, right? Depends what the client is making. All right, usually I say the pharmas are early adopters, and pharma companies are doing already S4s, like a big
because they have big budgets also.
But they have a big budget, and in the end, I don't know if it's true, but they negotiate nicely with SAP because they are early adopters, right? So they have a kind of entry level slightly cheaper, because then they could be showcased as a amazing success. But again, it's just I'm laughing about it. But for me, always pharma companies are early adopters, and usually the market is following them. I would say pharma, then manufacturing, automotive, etc., etc. Yeah, I think in a few months we should see the difference. I really hope so. Touch the wood, yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, no, I agree with you, because what I have seen from my European customers, also lots of talks, but not so many big projects right now. Everybody's kind of waiting, or everybody not, but a lot of people. But what I saw a big surge in projects of companies implementing SAP in Latin America, doing rollouts. Like,
Yeah.
I think the last 2 years, I have seen like 30, 40 of my customers finally decide, okay, let's implement it there in Latin America.
Yeah, but the question is why they're doing that, right? Either they starting from there, like a pilots, which is a kind of cheap way, right, to start the pilot. Okay, because the workforce in Latin America is cheaper than in Europe. It's easier to make sure that the template is working, etc. Or is just the natural, because LATAM is catching up on what was done in Europe, right? So that will be a good question to ask those clients. What kind of politics they are having inside? If it's kind of rollout from Europe to LATAM, or no, it's starting from LATAM, it will go to across the world, right? So that would be interesting to know. But I noticed as well, because it's one of our clients, is asking us for a talent in LATAM across the SAP and Salesforce integration. Last year, because usually my market is Europe, but obviously if the client is asking because a lot of times they just bring me to other markets as well with them on the project, right? Because we did a great job in Europe. Okay, help us there and there. And we are obviously trying to do that in the markets where we can operate. But yeah, it's end of last year, I would say since September, I get more requests from LATAM than I ever had before as well. So that's for sure. I can confirm that.
Yeah, at least in my case, it's like German or European companies that they have SAP here in Europe for 20 years, and now they saw Latin America. It's time to put it there. Maybe it's an area to invest. And lots of companies also started to invest in Brazil. I did some projects of companies that decided to create a factory there, and it was a lot for a small period of time. I think in the last 2 years, yeah, at least lots of companies decided to invest there. I'm not sure if it's linked like to this geopolitics because we have some issues here, there in Asia. Maybe we have to find somewhere else to produce things. But yeah, things are changing maybe.
But that's another thing, is because after the COVID, the market is more global than ever, right? Even though right now there is that was as well part of my presentation in SAP Sidetrack about the mobility of the workforce, right? So after the COVID, obviously the preference from the SAP consultant is not to travel. Or limited travel, but from the client right now, they ask more and more to be present on site, and then there is a cost optimization part, which obviously with the current demanding economy is saying, okay, if we have a possibility to do the whole project on the remote, why we should spend X amount in Europe where we can go, I don't know, to Brazil, right? Because or any other country in Latin, because that's another thing that, for example, before the like India was tends to be like offshore, cheap, etc. The prices in India are growing very quickly, right? So suddenly is becoming more and more expensive, right? And then the time difference between India and Brazil is the same, right? For Europe, almost, right? Is just on the other side, I would say, of the clock. But that's I'm looking on this one like that the whole workforce globally is kind of moving, and is a less and less countries they can be seen as a kind of offshore or cheaper. So in the my approach on this one is as long as the talent is experienced, it doesn't matter where they sit, because in the end the most important thing is what they are bringing to the table, and if you can do the project remotely, right? Because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it indeed happened a lot. For Brazil, it's even more common to work for US because then it's basically the same time zone. So yeah, there is like 1 hour difference, 2 hours difference, depending on where you are in US. But it's the time zone makes it easier than working with Europe with 4 to 5 hours sometimes. And that is something I noticed, at least from my network of consultants in the last 2-3 years. Lots of them stopped working for Brazilian projects, and they now work only these kind of international projects because then rates are better. They can work remotely for sure, and they can also learn new cultures and do different things that they can't do like in a national project. This part, I think, really changed a lot.
And that's the beautiful part, and I love it. Just interaction between the different cultures and putting the team like a global teams. One of the best projects I ever had, it was the project that I almost bring the whole team, which was, I think, consistent of 10 or 12 guys out of every country I could think of, in the way that there was 10 different nationalities in the team, and they were doing the global template together, and that was brilliant, because they understand each of the localization aspect from the other side, They communicate perfectly in English, so there is no reason why it should not be global always. Again, it's pros and cons about the time difference, prices, everything. But in my approach, I always like to be as open as possible in my searches, and then give to the chances to everyone around.
Yeah. And then now we are approaching like 45 minutes. Was
Already cool.
it was fast.
It was fast indeed.
Yeah, time flew in the end. And I would like to ask you, like, your final considerations, if you have special remarks for job seekers or for customers. Yeah, in the audience, there will be more consultants than hiring managers. But I think it's interesting if you have also your opinion. And as a recruiter, as a professional and a good one, how would you recommend something also for everybody right now in the market?
No, I mean, it's the I would say advice is always, just to make sure you create your network, connect with everyone, be positive, help each other. And then, just to make sure that you follow the trends and then you kind of stay updated, right? Because I say it's so important right now just to make sure that you are not missing the boat. And then again, is look for a job everywhere you can, right? Do not limit yourself, because there are jobs that are fully remote, that you can do as long as you'll be flexible yourself, right? And the last thing, think about if you have a problem finding a job, think about traveling to be on site on the client side, because that maybe it will make a difference, But again, everyone is different. Everyone have their own needs, right? From the client, well, I think the most important thing is start as 4, guys. Start as 4 and give us more roles. In the end, everyone will be happy. On the serious note, no. On the client perspective, is just to make sure that whatever decision they make, it need to be the most educated way, within the respect of the budget, and then make sure you always look after the great team. And I would say, always give this extra 50 or 100 euros on top of the rate budget, daily budget, to the consultant in the end, because this 50 euros make a difference in the case of the quality you can get, right? So I always say that, we are bringing the experience, not experiments, into the table. So that's why they should look at it. So with the clients, if you need any needs, let me know.
Perfect. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me and record this podcast. I'd like to emphasize once again, there was a great conversation, and hopefully we can do some business together in the future.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Thanks a lot, and much appreciated for the invitation again. And speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.